Good afternoon, everyone. We've got a panel for you today, some interesting speakers, very different organizations. I think the intent today is to give everybody a sense of how these folks have unleashed innovation at their companies and have brought together diverse functions within to really get the message across. So with that, we'll jump right in and we'll introduce ourselves. And Beth, would you like to get us started?
Hi, I'm Beth Heider. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Skanska USA. Skanska USA has 4 business units. We have a civil unit that builds roads and bridges, wastewater treatment plants, civil works. We have a building group that builds vertical construction, so renovation of the UN, MetLife Stadium, and all sorts of other things in between. We also have an infrastructure development group that does design, build, operate a major infrastructure. We just picked up a project in Florida, which is the I-4 renovation. It's a major roadway and a series of bridges in the Orlando area. And then we have a commercial development group that is a commercial developer of office buildings, of dormitories, laboratories, and other things. And our development groups provide construction opportunities for our 2 building divisions. So they have very, very sort of different models, but interrelated. And my role at Skanska is to provide a vision and to align the sustainability work of each one of these business units.
Hi, good morning. My name is Scott too. I work for Ingersoll, where I lead the sustainability office in a separate group that we call the Center for Energy Efficiency and Sustainability. It's a dedicated team that's tasked with integrating sustainability throughout the existing processes in the company, from how we market and make environmental claims to how we design future product portfolios, as well as how we manage our product manufacturing facilities. For those of you not familiar with Ingersoll, we're a 145-year-old company, a collection of strategic brands that include Trane Commercial, HVAC for buildings like this one, Thermo King, the nation's largest refrigerated transport business, as well as the Ingersoll brand, which is a long-standing industrial brand in air compression systems, now pushing things and providing solutions for businesses like automotive and others that rely on robotics and manufacturing processes in particular.
Good afternoon. My name is Darren Ernst. I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for a company called AECOM. Most of you will not have heard of us, but that's a problem for you because we are brilliant. And I send the thanks from our CEO. I met him in the elevator as I was going down. I was asking where I was going, and I told him and what the topic was, and he said, well, I'm very pleased that you've been invited to go disrupt someplace else today. So my job is essentially have 3 roles. My job is to take these 45,000 people in our offices in 110 countries and actually help them figure out how sustainability can be value added to our clients and our clients' constituents. We never tell our clients they should be more sustainable. We ask our clients how we can help them solve the problem that is most on their mind in the most sustainable way possible. And we define sustainability as not as a green idea, but as a way to manage complexity at the interface of money, natural capital, social systems, and human intelligence. And we focus on the human intelligence part of it quite strictly because, as it turns out, the human intelligence is the only natural resource on the planet that actually is improved by use rather than diminished by use. And so as a bunch of engineers, I have a struggle, given that I'm not an engineer, that I'm going to embrace doubt when many of them are not. It's an interesting ride.
Hello, I'm Darren Beck, and I'm here to inspire you today. I'm with Sprint. I sit within the corporate responsibility group, and More recently, I've also begun managing innovation for the company with our CR innovation pipeline. We've done a very good job over the years supplying sustainable bins to the business. It certainly helped us to enhance our reputation. Recently, we were named the most eco-focused wireless carrier here in the country. It's also helped us to drive a lot of cost savings for the business. In 2013 alone, we were able to save more than $100 million on reducing energy and resources within the business because of our sustainability efforts. Beginning this year, about last year, we began applying that sustainability lens in an entirely new way. We've begun focusing on using it to grow the business. And so whether it's working with our sales teams to be able to get in front of corporate customers and talk about our sustainable business solutions, or if it's identifying innovative new products and services that can help to grow new lines of income and revenue for the company. The nice thing is that innovation has been at the heart of all of that. So I want to make sure that all of you leave with today is two thoughts. And first is that as sustainability practitioners, you are ideally positioned to drive innovation within your companies. I'm happy to share with you how that is through our experience here as we go through today's panel. But beyond that, if you can become a student of your business, you have the ability to really utilize innovation as a tool for growth. And again, happy to share what we've begun dabbling in within Sprint as we kind of continue to grow out that feature of what we bring back to the business in terms of value. And again, if there's any questions you might have after we're done, I'm happy to talk with you further afterwards.
Well, I realize I say my own introduction, so I'll jump in very quickly. I'm Matthew Rutter with Ernst & Young's Climate Change and Sustainability Services practice. Primarily, we're working with our clients in the CAS practice to understand their environmental and social impacts. And some of these innovations help reduce those impacts and allow the business world to make some better claims on how they're working with communities across the country, across the world. So, our first question for the panel, and Beth, maybe we start with you. We've got these large organizations with many different divisions, business units, so on and so forth. How do you bring everybody to the table to set the right goals and get everybody talking?
Thanks. Yeah, actually, what I've been working on very actively right now, Skanska is in the process of doing our global 2020 business plan. And yes, I know it's 2014, but it takes a while to get this together. So what I've been doing is I've been working with each one of our business units to put together their leadership plan. And the leadership plan is intended for them to take a look at their current organization, incremental change that will help transform their business, and then also transformational change that will take more than one business cycle, because remember, we're looking at our 5-year strategic plan. And to move from the notion of doing less good and just complying and making sure that bad things don't happen so we don't end up in the newspaper in a negative way, which we have been mercifully in a very long time, to using sustainability and the triple bottom line of sustainability, which is the lens through which Skanska views the world, to enhance what we're doing and to go from compliance through just efficiency, which is making sure that we're not wasting money on energy and other things, to innovation, which is kind of the highest level of attainment. But to do it in a strategic way is baked into our overall strategic plan. And by asking each of the business units first to take a look at what their leadership plan is around sustainability, I'll have an opportunity to work with them to then harmonize it, because they serve each other. Our building groups actually build for our development groups. And the extent to which we can then bake that into our larger business plan will allow us, I believe, to do things in a way that truly is transformative in the economy.
Sure. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I feel as though compliance is going to drive a lot of innovation. We've got Obama's plan out there to reduce emissions, and they've given states quite a bit of leeway to get there. Scott, do you think that compliance will drive the game, or are you guys approaching sustainability a little bit differently?
I'm not sure compliance compliance drives the game. I think beyond compliance is where the real interest lies. Compliance is sort of where eco-efficiencies from companies have been for years, which is attempting to find ways to make our own manufacturing and products more efficient. But the big interest is around beyond compliance, those kind of market-facing trends. And, the most progressive companies are those that are looking at those mega trends, things like resource scarcity, and perhaps using sustainability as we're doing in Ingersoll Rand to sort of reverse the thinking internally around how will things that we deliver today be very different in 2020 and beyond, especially related to things like resource scarcity, those mega trends, those growing cities, and how will we deliver things today very differently. And getting that conversation happening internally with various levels of the organization, senior leaders, product designers, engineering groups, plant managers. Interesting conversations begin, and really it takes all that mix. It is important to do the strategic piece. It's also very important to do the piece that's just below that with the actions and tactics, and that's where it gets really tough sometimes, but that's where the innovation begins. Sure, fair enough.
And my husband, who works for the federal government, says that policy is for amateurs, logistics, that's your approach.
And logistics, right.
We answer this a couple ways. One is they're not exactly moles, but I have colleagues implanted in every end market, in every business line, in every geography, who have a shared sense that the future of the company will be dependent upon our ability to help our clients be more sustainable in the future. So we discuss regularly, and I'm actually then feed into I report directly to two people. One is the Chief Strategy Officer for AECOM, and the other is the Chief Operating Officer for AECOM. So for sustainability, I'm at the interface of strategy and operations, and I'm brought into all of those discussions. For a company like ours, there are some barriers that also need to be worked on. We pride ourselves on our technical excellence, and we are technically excellent in many ways. We're not perfect, but technical excellence also has its downside, because everything that is sort of screwed up today was designed based upon the best knowledge that was available at the time. So we think adaptation is the key thing. But in addition to technical excellence, there has to also be this issue of whether it's financially viable and politically acceptable. So that combination of things, feasibility, financial viability, politically acceptable, is all we can know about the issues today. And our job as a company is to nudge on all three of those aspects so they align in the future in ways that we can actually get better questions so we can provide better answers. So much of our work in sustainability is not just about technical excellence, it's about actually working with our clients to get them to understand the changing nature of their risk to the extent that the risk can be understood. And the future is random and chaotic. Much of the risk we can't possibly understand today. But we need to actually recognize that there are risks, and the combination of those three elements prepare to flex quickly when things become known.
So around employee engagement and approaching it within the organization, we've got a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So we have the good favor of having a CEO that is not only very supportive, but as we come to be known as a bit more of an active member even within the sustainability community for pushing organizations toward a greater sustainable state. So within our company, the nice thing is we've got several, maybe about 10 long-term goals that are all kept within the scorecard that we put in place within the organization, and within his lead team, and or at least at the business unit level, we So that's a top-down approach to be able to kind of get that engagement, at least supported from the upper echelon and then channeled into the organization for efforts. There's a working group that's cross-functional, going after everything from renewable energy goals we have in place to water conservation, on into a paper leadership council we have for the company as well. So the bottom-up approach is really, again, something that I think that we can all draw upon from our own experience. If you're in sustainability today, I'm going to venture to say that you've probably found your way there because it does a nice job of blending both what you've been very good at professionally, but at the same time, too, taps into some of that personal passion that you have to get out there and to make a difference within the world. I will tell you today, I feel in corporate America, there's pent-up demand for that alignment of your personal values with your professional values. And as we've gone throughout the organization, looking for help, looking to drive innovation in different ways, we have found champions, right? And this happens organically. You know, your ability to kind of get in there, all of a sudden you find someone who this just really resonates with. And our ability to turn the limelight on them and give them an opportunity to run with it in ways they hadn't found a way to express professionally before has been a tremendous opportunity to get that bottom-up growth and bring new ideas to us that we hadn't had in the past. I'll give you an example. We're doing a pivot more recently on, again, the role of a sustainability executive within Sprint looking out. I'm more often going out with our sales teams and meeting with their customers, their enterprise customers, and talking with my peers, talking with other sustainability executives who have goals that they want to achieve. As I've had a chance to work with Kara, a young lady who comes to mind, and she's taken me on calls with a major beverage manufacturer, a large retail chain, retail restaurant chain, and even a motion picture studio. She's had this great opportunity to see where our conversations can essentially range at a very basic level of just sharing best practices. Operationally, you know, here's what we got out of rolling out our waste management into a national kind of portfolio plan versus this or the other, looking at recs, looking at PDAs within the organization, and just kind of sharing across the table can add value and some stickiness to the relationship. But then going above and beyond that to say Sprint actually has solutions in place, wireless solutions, that can help you drive greater fuel efficiency, greater electricity efficiency within your business, to ratchet out your carbon footprint and save money too. She was inspired by going through this, and she began finding not only within the sustainability space, but corporate responsibility as a whole, when you think about the social implications and the other things that Sprint can do to assist them. She's gone out and she's found her peers within the sales field force, and they've created what they call the Sprint Good Works Ambassadors. And they've begun taking this to a whole new level. They've begun trying to figure out what kinds of events that they can set up for our customers' employees to introduce them to the green lifestyle, to introduce them to ways that they can focus on driving to a greater extent and on texting, and take that to a whole new level. It's about the fact that she sees what a difference that can make, not only in the world, but for her customers. And she's found a way to express that. We've been very supportive, giving her tools and resources along the way. And she on her own has gone out and kind of created this self-organized network. So again, that top-down approach helps to set the priority, but when you can find those champions within the business, nurture them, right? Roll them out and give them the resources they need to run with.
Thank you, Darren. I think that these are great points, right? So what I'm hearing is that all of you have a good handle on the functions within your businesses that are most interested in sustainability, driving technological change. And inevitably, it's in response to these diverse group of stakeholders that are demanding this of you, whether it's your shareholders, your employees, your customers, the public sector, private sector, so on and so forth. So maybe the next question is, how do you measure this internally? Are there sales goals? Are you benchmarking and baselining technology against yesteryear? I mean, I've got limited knowledge of architecture, but we can lean on some of our colleagues at the table here, but we baseline against ASHRAE standards, for example, or building codes, so on and so forth. So how are you guys measuring this within the organization? Are there metrics, and how did you decide that those metrics are most appropriate? Feel free to jump in, anybody.
Like Skanska, we actually touch on every aspect of structures of human development. Buildings, roads, all that sort of stuff. And there's certainly metrics for each one of those, or performance standards, those sorts of things. What we find is that, whether it's green in the US or Green Star in Australia or whatever, markets are shifting and they're demanding certain performance outcomes from their buildings. In Australia, in Melbourne, you can't get interim financing for a high-rise building that isn't going to be a 6-star or the highest star in their Green Star program, just because the banks feel like their capital is at risk because they won't lease up quickly enough. That actually affects maybe 1/3 of the human race, that kind of stuff that we work on, that we've been talking about here in terms of energy and a variety of other things. And so we actually spend some time thinking about the other 2/3 that it is less profitable and for the standards are less. But we see that the market potential is huge in solving some problems. AECOM is starting to think much more deeply about food and nutrition. Now, I mentioned to our COO it was something we should think about, and she just looked at me and she said, we're not farmers. And she knows that I'm capable of running amok and making us into farmers. And I said, look, we design roads, rail systems, energy systems, ports, manufacturing facilities. We're involved in every attribute of nutrition and moving it around the world, except for planting and harvesting. And that brings us to, again, Skanska will be heavily engaged in this as well, this notion of the water, food, energy, security nexus. A lot of people don't use the last term, don't talk about security. Sustainability as the framework for managing complexity is the framework through which you do a deep dive into the relationship between water, food, energy, and its consequences for security. And I just wanted to emphasize why that we think security is so important. AECOM is a global firm, and we work around the world, and we've been chased out of a number of countries and lost huge amounts of money due to civil strife that we didn't predict. Unless governance works, we can't work in countries around the world. And therefore, our market share will dramatically drop because most of the urban growth will be happening in the developing world, not in the first world. So thinking about how these attributes, water, food, and energy, actually relate to the idea of security ends up being much more important for us than we thought it would be. And for those of you who just read US newspapers about the Arab Spring, because of our biases, all the stories were about this struggle for democracy. Well, the issue was there's no employment for young men, the cost of food was going through the roof, and they couldn't look after the people they loved. That's what drove the Arab Spring. It had nothing to do with democracy, yet these authoritarian states had actually provided for what people needed. They never would have changed. So I think all of us, as we think about this idea of sustainability and business, need to expand our thinking into the social attributes of the systems that we're talking about and how they actually can help democratize, help increase the quality of governance, increase safety, increase public health, all these other things that are outcomes of a good sustainability agenda.
Well, and actually that sort of circles back around to your initial question, which was how do you measure stuff? And some of the things that are most important are very difficult to quantify. So when we look at identifying what the key performance indicators, and we call them our main strategic indicators are, and then try and link those across business units where you have very different cultural expectations, you have different measurement schemes. We're not even going to go into metric and imperial. There are a million different ways that it's challenging to cross-reference even things that are measurable. But what I would say, Matt, is that one of the things that we're working very diligently to do in the US is to identify those metrics that are meaningful to our shareholders and help the company drive their business. And that nexus isn't always easy, because certainly in the US there are 50 different mandates in 50 different states, and then you've got local jurisdictions that drive what's happening. What is considered to be just compliant in California is, crazy, extreme and demanding in other parts of the country. So what we're attempting to do is to take a look at what is happening in the U.S. across all of our business units, and certainly within our related business units, our commercial development group and our building group that builds for them. But take a look at how you can encourage not only overall performance, but incremental improvement even within the isolated markets, because I think that Gary will concur that construction, design, and construction, even though we are global companies, the act of building is a local action. And so you really have to sort of understand what the expectations and aspirations are. And then the great part about being a global organization is that you can push that information out and share it. So compliance is an important piece of it because it's something that's expected by our shareholders, and we want to make sure that we have a CSR report that is reflective of our goals. But to take that information and find a way to actually elevate your performance in local markets and share that information is really the key to driving innovation, which gets us back to the top.
Very fair points. I mean, what I'm understanding here is that there's a local aspect to this driving sustainability and innovation, right? That whether Gary was talking about droughts and resource scarcity, or as you're talking about just complying at a local level, I mean, you certainly have to have corporate-wide goals, global goals that are able to be disaggregated, right? You cannot be so structured, so rigid. And so,
but I think things can be measured, though, on a pragmatic basis as well. For instance, we measure progress related to some of our talent. We have objectives and measurements around. I'm of the opinion that to get to where we need to be in 2020 and beyond, that some of our employees who've been with the company maybe 10, 15, 20 years, that are not considered new in career, that there's a new skill level that's needed. And so we've actually embarked on a unique competency training. It's as serious as any other competency training. It comes with third-party certification. And it's specifically designed to raise the understanding of how these outside influences, whether it's the nexus you're talking about, or some of these other trends, how they will impact the future and what the individual employee's role is. These things can also be measured, and you can track that performance, just like you can performance of products, which we also measure. It's no longer, I think, good enough to say our newest product has great features, but there's a host of other questions now that we ask. Things like materials, are they the same now as they were in the past? If not, how are they different? Do we use less materials to deliver even more? Now, and answer that in many cases is yes. So telling that story, tracking that progress, these are also things that can be measured, so very pragmatically.
Sure. Yeah.
May I run this up? I think the panel's done such a nice job of being able to talk about the metrics from a performance standpoint, from a compliance standpoint. I might build by looking at it from a slightly different view to kind of provide a complementary thought. And I'll talk about metrics inside the company, metrics around applying, let's say, innovation, sustainable innovation towards new products and services. When I had mentioned at the outset about becoming a student of your business, part of it, give me a moment to kind of lay some context, part of it's just understanding how do you make money as a company. For spread, I think it's pretty quickly, people can think, well, you guys sell phones, and you sell service to my phones every month, and that's what makes spread money. And I'll tell you, we don't make a whole lot of money selling those phones. There's little to no money we actually make off that. The service we do make money off of. But if you look around the company as a whole, you come to find out we make money a lot of other ways too. accessories we sell. Our ability to look at a lot of machine-to-machine solutions. We talked about Internet of Things earlier. Wholesale business, selling mobile advertising, selling mobile apps, looking at everything from patents to licensing that we can do as a company as a whole. So within each of those channels, each of those swim lanes, there are metrics, right? And in our success as sustainability practitioners, if we're going to try to drive innovation towards top-line revenue for the company, comes from how well we meet those internal metrics that each one of those pieces of the business pays attention to. I'll give you an example, right? Within the accessories side of the company, we've actually just worked with a small startup, a new manufacturer called New Light, and we've helped to launch the first carbon-negative phone case for iPhones. And the fun thing is this is plastic that's made from the air. And through that process, it's great that we've got a partner out there that we can help usher in and can provide some disruptive technology around materials. But you have to understand the metrics that the accessory team needs to hit in order to make this a viable product. So in this case, what you've got is New Light taking methane, which is a problematic greenhouse gas, maybe 10 times the potency of carbon dioxide in the air. And with that, they're able to sequester out those carbon molecules into a polymer that they can make into any number of types of plastic. But beyond that, the neat thing is, this is something that can be produced at less of an expense than going from petroleum-based plastics. So if this becomes a viable product, it's something that can have a very disruptive position for the industry as a whole around moving you away from finite resources like fossil fuels for creating those plastics you need to something that actually helps to resolve this gas that we don't know what to do otherwise with in the climate. So with that as a whole, great concept again, but the focus on the accessories team, their metrics are they need to hit a certain sales margin on any of these accessories that you bring about to be able to get into the sales channel you begin online with Sprint.com. You can find this in a couple of weeks if you want to see it. And with that, then you would have to be able to hit a certain level of volume to trigger entry into the retail stores. And to be able to stay into the retail stores over a certain period of time, there are metrics that you need to hit in terms of sales volumes per store, per month, to be able to maintain that presence as well. These are things that I, as a sustainability practitioner, have not known, and nor has the team known up until this point, until I've gone out almost channel by channel with the team to begin learning about our business in ways that we don't typically pay attention to. But we all have the ability to spot novel technologies like this, whether the conferences we go through, the NGOs we talk to, a lot of the startups. Imagine about how many startups we're sharing space with today. We've got great ideas like VoicePark earlier. I mean, there's a lot of different things we can bring to bear through a lens that we give to the company that no one else. There are opportunities that may come to us that won't come through any other channel. But you have to understand the metrics inside the business for gaining access into those various channels to figure out where you can get a foothold and bring them something of value that they can run with.
I think that gave us a good example of what's doing tangible, right? You have a new product that's coming online that you can measure negative carbon impact, right? At the same time, hopefully you can measure those sales and bring that business case up to the highest levels of the organization to prove to those decision makers that this can work. At this point,
I just make one short. You should set up your manufacturing in New Zealand. New Zealand is trying to become the world's first carbon neutral country, but they have way too many ruminants roaming around. So the ability to capture that methane, you really help that.
Well, at this point, we wanted to encourage some participation. If anybody has a question, I think we have mic runners running around, so we can have it. We got somebody else.
Thank you. Lindsay Clinton from the think tank and consultancy called Sustainability here in New York. Thank you everyone for your comments. Gary in particular, I was really curious to hear about you thinking about the role of AECOM as a food company and you're thinking about the nexus framing. And I was wondering if you could elaborate on how you're going to embed or advance that thinking within the company. Is it about changing the business model? Is it about advocacy at the government level? Is it possible for you to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, these issues are so complex and it's impossible to get them right the first time, so you have to attack them from a bunch of different ways. One way we're going at this is by working with a number of nations that I can't name that are actually putting together national food strategies because the governments are feeling more and more vulnerable. Even the U.S. government should be feeling more and more vulnerable. We are actually drying up our major aquifers in the Midwest in order to grow wheat to ship overseas, and then those aquifers will never come back. And we have, under our agricultural policy, we make it so hard to get people food grown elsewhere to come back that we're not capturing the water within that can go back into our own aquifers. But so we're working with some national governments. We're working with some large agribusiness companies. They are starting to recognize that there is growing hostility to their moving into countries and acquiring agricultural land. The Chinese are actually facing more and more political tension from their land acquisition in Africa. So these agri companies are trying to figure out ways that this process can actually be value added for the farmers as opposed just for the shareholders of the large companies. So how do you actually scale down the production so more people can be involved with the production and still keep the price down so it's affordable for moving? There's a lot of stuff going on there that has to do with logistics and also the amount of power it takes to move the water to where it's consumed. There's a third element, we go on and on about this, but there's a third element that we're heavily involved with. One of the things that we don't think about much in this country is topsoil. It takes about 5,000 years to create a foot of topsoil. Agricultural practices around the world, flooding for agriculture has washed most of that topsoil away. So many places that used to be fertile are no longer fertile. And then the question comes, well, how do you change the way in which you irrigate? How do you change the way you do soil replenishment, those sorts of things, so that you can get at this security question, so that the local farm to market system continues to work as opposed to them having to move into cities and become another social burden because they have no income because all they know how to do is farm. So it all sort of wraps up into an interesting conversation. Nobody knows the right answer to any of this stuff. All we know is that it's a problem that needs to be thought about. All of us need to be thinking about it. And everybody in this room has something to contribute to this question of how do we de-risk not climate change. We never talk to our clients about climate change anymore because they don't, it's like the word sustainability. We talk to them about weather. And we talk to them about earthquakes, and we talk to them about fires. We don't talk to them about climate change because that's a longer horizon sort of thing. With food, food is an immediate thing. Food is something that is evidence-based every day. And given that all of the things, U.S. military and the military establishments around the world are actually doing the most of the research on agricultural issues around the world. The CIA has a big task force working about this because they're linking food problems up to where there will be political unrest and disruption coming forward. So we think we're in different businesses than we actually are when we put these things in a broader context.
Can I just add a comment here? Because, you know, what you're pointing out, these complexities is something that's been there all along, but we've just begun now as companies seeing it this way, and that's the systems approach. And it's no longer just about a road or just about a single building. These complexities are really about a system, and it requires, to answer the question, it requires the policy side, it requires the new products, new services, new solutions, just like it requires a system approach to solve it as well, so it's no longer incremental pieces of that. Although they all have to be attacked, it's all that's necessary.
This is why it's interesting to be a sustainability officer, right? Because if you really take sustainability seriously, it's people, planet, and profit. And, you know, my CEO, who I adore, and is a really great man, Mike McNally, when I talked to him about my ambitions for sustainability within Skanska USA, he's like, wait a minute, Beth, this is not global domination. Because if you look at your business through a sustainability lens, it's all of it, right? And so driving that into the four corners of your company, into every dynamic of what you do, and then trying to balance that is the real, you know, interesting part of it.
Well, you know, it's about time. We've exhausted our allotted talk time. I just want to thank our panelists. I think we've got some great information out there. Everybody will be walking around if you do have additional questions. Some key takeaways that I've gathered just listening to these folks. We have a changing future. There's going to be changing demands. That's one of the largest drivers of sustainability. What is going to break? That's going to require something critically about how to overcome. I think we need metrics. Everybody's going to measure their own folks, their own sales, their own impacts. And at the same time, this is going to happen at a very micro level. Individual employees, individual functions having their say. So thanks again. I hope you found this as interesting as I did. And see you guys back around.